Welcome, Kiss Army YouTube. This is episode 26 of the Kiss Army Things podcast. You're with Xander.
And Jeb.
Thank you for joining us here on YouTube, talking all things Kiss. We really appreciate it. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thank you for joining us. Drinking that money bag soda. So, Jeb, real quickly, before we get into anything, let's do the Kiss Spotlight. And then I also want to talk about the Dayton show because you weren't here in the last episode.
That's right.
And so I want to get your thoughts on that. But real quickly, this is a Kiss podcast. We're going to talk about Kiss and we're going to talk about the music. So, what album would you want to spotlight this week? What album you listened to the most or most recently?
Actually, not an album.
No?
It is a specific show.
Okay.
In which, well, there's kind of a backstory here. At our local record store, they actually had a copy of Kissology Volume 2.
Yes.
Now, of course, you own all three volumes. I used to own all three volumes myself. And then a few years ago, I went and sold them all, which I totally regret now because they're amazing and they're really hard to find.
Yeah.
So I found a sealed copy at our local record store. And I bought it, and I haven't watched it in a while. And so I am highlighting the 1980 show they did in Sydney, Australia.
Yep.
With
Okay.
W.A.L.K.E.R freshly in the band. You know, Gene, Paul, Eric, and Ace for, one of those short-lived but amazing Kiss lineups. And that show is absolutely phenomenal. From the way Paul's vocals sound to the way they all look. They look and sound just sensational.
Some cool costumes.
I feel like all four members were firing on all cylinders on that show.
I agree.
And that's a show where I think I may have mentioned this before, where if they wanted to do like another Alpha soundboard, if they're going to take one from something that already exists, like kind of like they did with the past two in a way, that would be my number one choice. Because I would kill to have that on CD. I would listen to that in my car all the time.
Same.
Just because the way it sounds. I mean, Paul really, really stands out. And of course, W.A.L.K.E.R's drum sound was fantastic. It was a well-needed sort of rejuvenation the band needed. And I feel like he helped all four of them get back doing a really energetic, bombastic Kiss show.
Yeah.
And that one specifically, if you haven't seen it, I mean, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you probably either own the Kissology set or you've seen it on YouTube or something, but I would recommend going and revisiting that. It's flawless.
It's still, it's one of my favorite shows to watch on Kissology Volume 2. And it's funny because Kissology Volume 2 was the first DVD that I bought in the series because of the fact W.A.L.K.E.R was on the front on the cover. I was like, if W.A.L.K.E.R's on the front cover, I gotta get that one because that one's the most special. So
Exactly. Totally.
I feel you on that. Okay, for sure. So my spotlight is actually, again, Sonic Boom.
Wow, okay.
This has never happened on Kiss Army Things where we've had the same spotlight twice in a row.
Hey,
there's no rule against it,
no.
But just being genuine, Sonic Boom is still in my car. I'm still listening to it. I mean, I've listened to a few other things, but ever since that show in Dayton, Daphne and I brought it with us on the way up, and it was one of the ones that we listened to, even Kiss Classics, the other disc with it. Mm-hmm. And I it had been on such a long time since I heard Sonic Boom, so hearing it again was not only refreshing, but it was just, it made me want another Kiss album from this current era.
Get that.
But I hadn't heard it in such a long time, and so every song felt like I was hearing it again.
Yeah. For the first time,
and then just continuing to listen to it, the songs are just sinking in. And I know it's been, probably like 12 plus years or whatever since the album has been released.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just don't want to take it out of my CD player. And
Absolutely.
I recommend, and the fact that I think you've spotlighted it in the past, both Rob and I spotlighted it on the last episode.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if three of us are spotlighting it, maybe it's worth, revisiting for some Kiss fans. I know that it's a little bit polarizing because of the fact that it's, the current lineup.
Sure.
And it's the current lineup trying to sound like 70s Kiss. I just see it as Kiss trying to return to form and not overthink things and make a good rock record. And to me, it's a really great rock record.
Much like Monster.
Monster, but I don't know. Sonic Boom is, once again, my Kiss spotlight. Not ashamed. I think Marty Delilah is the perfect Kiss song.
It's a 10, yeah.
Say Yeah is a great single. Even Never Enough, which...
I like Never Enough.
Which, I mean, I liked it too, but I never really thought anything more of it other than, it's a good Kiss song. But no, the lyrics actually kind of stand out. They almost remind me of one of the songs on Psycho Circus. I don't know if it's like Raise Your Glasses or I Pledge Allegiance, but one of those songs is just one of those, feel-good, confidence songs. It's never enough.
I love it.
So I'm hearing some of the songs a little differently than I maybe would have back then. So I'm spotlighting Sonic Boom.
Yeah, When Lightning Strikes also. I feel like that Tommy's I feel like the Tommy and Eric songs may have been better. Well, I like Out of This World a lot too.
I do
But I
too.
feel like both Tommy and Eric songs on Sonic Boom may have been a little better than although I do like Monster as a whole more than Sonic Boom, even the way it sounds. I know everyone hates the production on it. I dig it.
I kind of want to pull up just real quickly the lyrics to When Lightning Strikes, because something
Written by Paul, I believe, right?
I think it was Paul and Tommy.
Paul, yeah.
I think I think maybe Tommy wrote
not
it
Ace.
and then Paul like came in and like helped tweak it maybe
Sure,
or something.
yeah.
Let me just pull because these lyrics up because yeah, again, like these have always been good songs to me. But it's funny how kind of like a movie where you go back and maybe you pick up on something or notice something that you didn't before.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm experiencing with Sonic Boom. So, for instance, here it is. It's my time. I'm going to take what's mine. Live wire and a loaded gun. Get ready because I'm the one.
Yeah.
He's saying that, when it comes to, being the guy to play lead in Kiss, at this point, there is nobody else but me. It's either me or there's no Kiss.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I go, well, without Tommy Thayer, there wouldn't have been a Kiss without the last 20 years. I guess they could have tried to have found somebody else, but I think Tommy having the knowledge that he has, having had the experience that he has with the band, having also been a fan, having loved the band, and also being a talented guitar player, all of those factors made him the right choice. And he says in this song, "It's my time. I'm going to take what's mine."
Well, it fits perfectly on Sonic Booming that this is the first studio album as the new era of Kiss.
Right.
Gene, Paul, Tommy, and Eric.
I'm pretty sure as the story goes that he knocked this vocal take in one take, 20 minutes.
Wow, that's actually really impressive if so, because that never happens.
No.
That's really cool. No,
he's a pretty good singer too, Tommy. He doesn't get a moment to really shine, because obviously Gene and Paul do most of the singing.
Yeah.
But when you hear songs like When Lightning Strikes, Out of This World, even when he does Shock Me, he's got powerful
vocals. Sounds good, yeah.
Anyway, I'm spotlighting Sonic Boom.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we brought that with us to the Dayton show. Mm-hmm. We're going to segue now to the Dayton show because in the last episode, Rob and I got to talk about the sound check, talk about the show. It was super awesome.
Yeah.
You were there with me, with Daphne at the show. And so I want to get your thoughts on that and get your review. Rob and I gave ours, so I mean...
Yeah, I'll give a brief review. I don't want to go too long just because you spent the whole last episode talking about it. But I did want to say that this was quite possibly the best sounding live Kiss show that I've attended, just sonically. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, I'm not totally sure, because I can remember the show that we saw before the one in Dayton was the one in Chicago.
Tinley
Park, which was an amphitheater.
Right.
And it was extremely loud. And everything was, it didn't sound bad, but it was like overly amplified, kind of distorted. Amphitheaters, they have to really project the sound to the back. 20,000 people, Yeah. And the venue in the arena we saw Kiss at the Nutter Center in Ohio sounded absolutely fantastic. Just sonically, everything. Tommy's guitar sounded amazing. I think Eric's singer, perhaps because it was his birthday or perhaps just because it was Eric Singer, I feel like stole the show throughout the whole way.
Yeah.
Even when I'm trying to look at the other members playing their instruments, I always go back to Eric because he's always doing something really interesting and different on the drums. Mm-hmm. And so I'm constantly looking at Eric, and of course it was his birthday that night. So perhaps he was amping it up a little bit, but even on the other shows, that was our 6th show, I believe, on the same tour. Uh-huh. Every show, Eric was outdoing himself.
He's always outdoing himself,
all the time, and I find that him and Tommy both are they're always on their A game, and I find those two really, those two especially shined that night in Dayton, and so I'm very, very proud to call that what is likely our last Kiss show. I couldn't have had a better experience, although I screwed up because not only did I, screw myself over as far as getting the sound check, my fault. I missed the opening of the show.
When the curtain dropped.
When the curtain dropped.
Not your fault.
I had worked like 10 hours that day, got off work, drove to Ohio. I'm there and I'm starving. And I'm never usually this guy who eats at shows just because it just feels weird. But I was so hungry, I was like, I have to go and get some like nachos or something. So, I figured we got plenty of time. I get up and go out into the hallways or whatever, and I stand in line It's not a very long line, but it took like 45 minutes to get in line.
Yeah.
There's two people in front of me, and I hear Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin come on, which is twice as loud as all the music that they played. That's the song.
That's the signal.
That's the signal that, okay, this is the last song they're going to play on the speakers before Kiss hits the stage, and that's been that way forever.
Yeah, as long as I remember.
So I heard that, and I'm like, okay, there's two people in front of me. I'm starving. I just want to get my nachos. Surely I can... Hopefully they'll hurry up and I can sprint back to my seat. And then no, they took forever.
The opposite.
I said I've been standing in line this whole time, so I technically missed the curtain drop and the ascension from the or the descension, not ascension from the they started out
they ascended from the floor
and they went through the roof.
That would have been awesome.
Like the Dynasty,
like the or what was it? Animalize.
Yeah, they did that in the 80s too. But so I missed the opening, which is really disappointing to me, but again, that was my fault because I was hungry, and so I had to stand there eating.
You've seen the show.
True, but it was the last show.
But it was the last show, and I was there like, where's Jeb?
Where's Jeb? But no, and I almost forgot. Well, I wanted to make sure I said this in the podcast.
Okay.
Someone actually recognized me.
Oh yeah.
From the show.
Yeah.
I was standing in line to get my nachos. I had to circle back to that. But if there's anything good that came out of these nachos, was that A, they were pretty good. B, while I was in line to get the nachos,
was it worth $20?
I was actually recognized by one of our listeners named Matt. He said I can't remember how long he said he was listening, but he must have walked by and said, hey, you from Kiss Army Things, and I was like, or he said, I think he said, I recognize you from that podcast. And I was looking around like, there's no way this guy's talking to me. I was like, someone else got another Kiss podcast because there's 1,000 of them. And then I realized he's talking to me. I'm like, really? That's so cool. Just strange.
Thanks, Matt. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll say it's strange that happened, but really cool, to know.
And I'm wondering if it's somebody that we know, like, or have met before, possibly. I don't know because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it's possible. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was like, I'll take it.
This is actually something because Zoom cut us off last time. I didn't think Zoom was going to cut Rob and I off last time, so Rob and I could have gone forever. But now that you're here, there is something I want to talk about that I didn't notice at the time. But once I got in the show, I was kind of like taken aback. There was no security check at this show.
Oh yeah, I noticed that when I went in.
Every time I've ever seen a live show.
Yeah, every one that I've been
before you can go in, before you even get your ticket scanned.
Yeah.
You have to empty out all your pockets.
Yeah, they
empty out all your pockets.
And then you go.
They check you. They scan you. They go. You walk through the scanner. Yeah, absolutely. There's rigid security. This one was weird because. Yeah, I didn't think about it when we got in there because I was like, look, I just want to see Kiss, and I could tell that everything was running behind.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get to my seat. And so, but once we were there, I was like, nobody checked me. I could have brought anything in here. I could have brought my Kiss knife if I wanted to, and nobody would have patted me down because there was nobody doing anything.
That's true.
And I thought that was super bizarre. And I'm kind of glad they didn't because if that were the case, it would have taken even longer. Because like I said, there was everything it felt like was behind at that show. As far as, because during the sound check, everything was behind.
Yeah.
Some of the meet and greet I heard may have been, but
I wonder if that's the reason why they did it. They just figured, which seems strange either way, because you'd think safety would be the number one priority.
Oh,
if they have to delay the show for the sake of safety, you'd think they'd do that. But I was surprised. I walked right in smoothly, and everyone was just able to just breeze on in.
Yeah, all they were doing was just scanning your ticket.
All they did was scan your ticket, and I've never, apart from like really, really small no-name bands,
Yeah, I've never had that happen.
But for a band like Kiss, every time I've seen them, any big show like that, we just walked right in, scanned your ticket, and you're free to go.
Yeah.
But it was a fantastic show.
The light show was incredible.
Yeah, I noticed the lasers looked awesome. I'm sure you talked about this with Rob, but the stage show was different.
A little bit different, yeah.
It's a little different. They had the cats, which I think those two large...
The C stage.
Yeah, I think they could have taken elements and added that in.
So awesome. I love that stage.
I was going to say, having Sammy T Circuit with the cats, with everything would have been... maybe it would get a little clustered.
Yeah.
But I thought the paws looked cool. They were just slightly different, just a different shape. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
It was awesome. I loved it.
But as far as the stage goes, I don't think anyone would have... we know the stage was different because we've seen the other stages. But if that was someone's first Kiss show, I don't think they would have said, like, oh, the stage is like lesser than any other. It was just a full Kiss show.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, even though I knew once I had seen the sound check, okay, well, obviously this is going to be, you know, a different stage. And it was a much smaller venue, by half the size that we saw the last show.
Before that,
None of that took away anything.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, no.
At all. I was like, this is still a full-fledged, full-scale KISS show.
I would prefer to see them at a place like, you know, an indoor arena. That place holds about 10 to 12,000. Yeah. And it looked absolutely packed, by the way. That show did.
Which is nice because, again, you and I have always, you know, we check on the Ticketmaster website. We're always looking at these sales. Yeah, we're looking at you know, how many blue dots are left. You know, we're hoping that these shows are filled up as much as possible. And, you know, sometimes when you look at them, you're like, oh, man, there's going to be a lot of holes, a lot of, you know, a whole empty section. Yeah. But somehow,
I mean,
when we go see KISS, there's very rarely an empty seat.
Well, I mean, at the show we saw at Tinley Park was, again, about twice as many people as that sold.
Yeah.
The lawn looked completely filled, which is where a lot of those tickets are going. And then I saw, you know, a few areas where there may have been, a few seats. But again, that's still a 20,000 seat, a 20-plus thousand seater. Right? Now, that's an amphitheater. The fact that they even get 3/4 of it, 50 years on, is just incredible.
That one also had, I think, some COVID restrictions too. You had to be vaccinated. You had to have your card, and that did kind of persuade some people.
And that was a pain getting in there.
Yeah, it was.
You can't tell how many people, including some people in our own group,
some people in our group who forgot their card and had to go pay $40 or $80 or whatever for a test.
That was that doing concerts during COVID is just.
I bet that was a moneymaker.
Oh, them paying to get tests done and all that. Yeah, and
$40 you can go get $40 for a test you can go get for free down the road.
I was gonna say I'm glad that we're out of that because that.
Oh my gosh!
I just would hate to do that every single time.
Yeah.
But no, great show.
I agree. And
happy to say it was my last.
Yeah, it
was.
Not happy. No, but if that show was your last, you're okay with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you also bought me. You bought me a little 8x10 Tommy Thayer photo with an autograph on it, which was very nice. It came with a few guitar picks. I was really kind.
Yep.
So I need to get that framed, and that was my last end of the road. We got a lot of end of the road mementos.
Oh yeah,
merchandise.
Yeah, because every one of them was like, oh, this is the last one, so it's like, oh, this is a memento. Isn't that an end of the road shirt right there, or is that something different?
This shirt is really cool.
You got it at Kohl's.
I got this shirt at Kohl's. So if you have a Kohl's near you and you want, a cool current lineup T-shirt, check yours out and see if you got one. I love this shirt. It's friggin' awesome.
It is friggin' awesome.
And it fits me good.
And this shirt I actually just got.
Hotter Than Hell, baby.
From the Hotter Than Hell era.
Love it.
Off of KissArmyWarehouse.com. Super sweet.
I love the way they looked on Hotter Than Hell. I don't know why it just looks so weird.
This is classic vintage KISS.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know what?
Those homemade costumes.
You know what I bet it is? What? It's because these are the outfits they wore during Winterland.
Yeah.
And that Winterland show is kind of iconic for a lot of KISS fans, including us.
The triangle ace thing. It's so bizarre, but this is worse.
Jeans, the skull and crossbones, but the bat wings.
The way Paul wore his hair was really back and up. It was really weird.
Yeah, the homemade costume.
Yeah.
This to me is like classic vintage KISS.
Absolutely.
Even if the shirt, I don't know when the shirt was made, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. Love the shirt. Love your shirt. We got some cool KISS shirts. Anyway, let's move on because today's topic is a doozy. The bulk of this video, we're going to be talking about the good old question: is rock dead? Obviously, this is a question that's been coming up a lot in the last several years, maybe upwards of a decade. More so recently because of people like Gene who are so vocal in the media.
Mostly Gene.
Blaming, us for the death of rock. And so, well, did fans kill rock? Well, we're the fans, so let's take a look at it and kind of open this up. And we're going to look at it from a lot of different angles and see where this conversation goes. This very well could be a series at some point. I'm not sure if this is going to be a 30-minute episode where it's like quick and easy and done.
Well, no.
Or an hour and a half if we're going to be a 2-parter, 3-parter.
If we wanted to, we could do a 4-hour episode, but we're not going to subject everyone watching. But I think it would be worth revisiting every once in a while, especially if after this episode we upload it and people can comment and say, here's this perspective, and then we could address that and say, okay, we're looking at it like this. Let's, it's such an interesting conversation, but there's so many things that need to be cleared up beforehand. It's a frustrating conversation, I'll say that.
It is, and it's important that we all kind of understand that everything goes, in this conversation, because it's like we're going to look at this from all different angles and all different perspectives.
We're going to be a little pedantic, a little overly,
absolutely
overthinking it, but that's what we do.
That's what we do, and that's what we want you to do as well. So absolutely leave your comments, let us know what you guys think, because obviously, Jeb and I have only been on this planet for a quarter century.
Yeah.
But
rock
some
to
of
us doesn't look like what rock looks like to a lot of other older
yeah,
people.
and so for some of you out there, you probably have twice the experience we do. So drop that in the comments, and as we're talking, be thinking about some of the things you would want to offer too. So Jeb, I mean, this is something we've wanted to talk about for a while.
Sure.
We're finally getting to it. So I guess the only way to start is just by asking the question: is rock dead? Do you agree with that? / how do you interpret that?
Yeah.
Or where do we even begin?
There's a problem with that question.
Yeah, okay.
And the way it's been brought up by Gene and everyone responding to Gene.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's partly Gene's fault, but I also wish people would, I'll just get into it.
Sure.
The main issue I have with that question is a lack of defining of the terms here. Now, what does Gene mean, or what does anybody mean? We'll just use Gene.
Sure.
Because he's the one who's
this
really...
This is a KISS podcast.
Yeah, I think...
let's use Gene
I think
as our
he's
example.
the one he's the main person who's really been, pushing the discourse.
Yeah.
And putting it... He's the one in my mind that's put it out there for everyone to argue about, whether everyone's aware of it or not. But the problem here is, what does he mean by dead? What does dead mean in this context to him? Does dead mean no longer existent? Because that's just on its face untrue.
Right.
Does dead mean, okay, rock as we knew it just isn't as popular, which seems to be objectively true. So with no one asking Gene, and with Gene not telling us what he means specifically when he says rock is dead, we can go nowhere with that.
It seems that from my understanding, it seems that when Gene says rock is dead,
Yeah.
he is under the impression that, obviously, like you said, it's untrue that there's no rock music being made, because there is.
Correct.
I think that he is saying, as far as a commercial mainstream musical genre, rock and roll is not only dead, but it is not going to revive. It will never be at the place where it once was. And he also uses the example of people like the Foo Fighters, who are the last rock stars. Who are the new rock stars? Who are the new people keeping it going? I think he's saying that as far as a commercial...
Well, there's another term that we need to define.
Okay.
There's two subjects that we're dealing with here. We're dealing with rock. And we're dealing with dead. What does dead mean? No, I don't mean to... Not what I meant to do.
Right, no, I got you.
So we have dead, which means, okay, no longer is popular. There's no, we'll talk about
mainstream, dead.
But what do we mean by rock? Because if you look at the billboards, well, rock is thriving. But what are we calling rock? If what Gene means by rock, we're talking about Led Zeppelin, we're talking about AC/DC, we're talking about KISS, we're talking about Aerosmith, we're talking about Queen, then obviously that's kind of dead, barring a couple of those. Because that's 50 years old, and how can we expect that to be? I mean, we shouldn't want that to survive. We should want something new. If we're talking about rock, is all those classic rock bands that, what comes to rock in your mind? Okay, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. Okay, fine. What we call rock in 2022 is not the same thing that we call rock 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Right.
So if you look at, I had something briefly pulled up here, a current Billboard charts as far as the end of 2021. Who were the most popular rock artists? Well, number one is a band that I've never heard of until I looked this up an hour ago. A group called Glass Animals. They could be great. They could be not. I have literally never heard of them.
Okay.
But of course, that doesn't mean anything against them. That just means I don't know about them. So
Yeah.
there's number one. And then number two, we have Machine Gun Kelly, who's done various genres of stuff.
Right.
And lately, I guess he's been doing more pop, punk, rock, guitar-based music, we'll just call it.
Yeah.
Okay, so already we have something that I don't even recognize. 2, Machine Gun Kelly, who I'm going to bite my tongue about. 3 is Imagine Dragons. Are they rock? This is the question. When we say rock is dead,
let's do it.
What the hell is rock? Because at this point, it's almost useless.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Imagine Dragons is not rock. So let's define rock.
I was going to say,
to me...
But that's what this says.
Yeah, well, I know it does. And I know why. It's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's idea of rock, which is, rock is very, very liquid. It's fluid. It's loose.
Let me give a few more names on here.
Go for it.
Number 4 is Fleetwood Mac. Okay, that's the first artist we have. Doesn't really surprise me. Because young people, it's one of those bands who young people have really gravitated towards because their music, at least that one album,
I'll be honest,
I've
absolutely never heard most of Fleetwood Mac.
I like Fleetwood Mac. I only have one. I only have Rumors. That's the only album I'm probably gonna buy besides their hits.
Yeah, I'm sure I've heard some of their music.
A lot of their hits And that album is absolutely timeless. So I'm like, okay, I can get that. A lot of younger people are gravitating towards that. Number 5 is A.J.R. I don't know if you know who they are. I cannot fathom that they are on this list.
I'm actually I'm actually more out of touch than I thought.
So again, what is rock? Number 6 is the Beatles. Now that's good. I mean,
the Beatles are still on the Billboard?
Yes.
Okay.
Because their music is the definition of timeless. Number 7 is Queen, and they have continued. Queen has continued to be the most, other than the Beatles, the most consistently popular rock band of all time.
Okay.
Easily.
Is that your statement, or is that like
that's just looking at
that's just your observation?
Looking at Spotify, they are up there with some of like a lot of contemporary artists.
Okay.
Kiss doesn't have half of Queen's listeners. Queen is huge still. They're absolutely huge.
Do you think it's because of Adam Lambert?
No, it's because of their hits.
Okay.
I mean, listen to those songs. They're absolutely timeless.
Because Adam Lambert has been the frontman for Queen for a while now, and he's...
No, it's Spotify. Adam Lambert with Queen isn't on Spotify. It's Queen's hits, man.
But
it's just like Fleetwood Mac's greatest hits.
Do you think that by Queen touring with Adam Lambert, do you think that helps keep those streams consistent, kind of like where Kiss touring keeps themselves relevant?
I'm sure it helps, but I don't think that accounts for the amount of Spotify listeners they have. But I think it's the name.
Do you think some of those Spotify listeners are fans of Adam Lambert who are now listening to Queen because they love Adam Lambert so much? Because he is huge on his own. You could argue that, but on his own. You
could argue that, but what's the excuse for Fleetwood Mac?
No, absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely. I have no idea.
It's, to me, I interpret that as just their hits. They're undeniable, and they sound incredible.
Are they rock?
Is Queen rock?
It's cool. Sure. Queen rock. The other guys, Fleetwood Mac.
Fleetwood Mac. They're like soft rock. I don't know what I would really put them as.
So who's AJR? We kind of blew past that.
They're kind of Daphne. What are they like? Some kind of electronic modern pop. Yeah, I was gonna say electronic music. And then number 8 is 21 Pilots. Are they rock? I don't even know what this next one is. We have AC/DC, Creedence Clearwater Revival, which shocked me. Number 12 is the Eagles. What? I love the Eagles, but in 2022, they're still, again, it's their hits. So, and then Tom Petty,
California,
Foo Fighters, Elton John, Elton John's kind of up there with Queen as far as young people loving those classic hits and all that. But all this to say, barring a few, it's mostly these older artists that we're looking at when we say rock.
Yes.
And so that definitely doesn't help. And so it would make sense that, sure, that rock is sort of, well, I can't even say it's dead because all those older acts are still popular.
They're still here. Well, okay, let's because we just went through a lot there. So let's back up.
What is rock?
And let's define rock, because rock to me is, like we said, guitar-based music. It's guitar and drums, bass, vocals, music.
Yeah, but I could name 50 bands that have all of that are not rock.
Well, no, I understand, because rock also, it's electric guitar. I think is very definitive.
Overdriven guitar is
a thing of rock.
Yeah.
Being upbeat is a thing of rock. Not saying you can't have ballads like Home Sweet Home or Beth or whatever, but traditionally speaking, I think a rock band is a traditional drum bass guitar vocal band. Not saying you can't have keyboards, not saying you can't have some digital effects like Shinedown maybe sometimes does, or even Godsmack on Time Bomb. That doesn't matter. I'm talking about like the bulk of your catalog. Kiss has a lot of ballads. They have Beth, they have Forever, but the bulk of their music is a rock band. Yeah. Why? Because it's guitars, drum, bass, and vocals predominantly. It's upbeat music. It's fast. Okay. It's electric guitar. That to me is defining. That to me is what rock music is.
I would say
under that criteria, Imagine Dragons is not rock.
Right. So.
But I may be.
So what does Gene mean though? I'm sure he means. But again, like that's why you can argue from both sides of the aisle.
Absolutely.
I can sit over here and say, well, clearly, rock is thriving because of a few of these artists who I don't know, but we're including artists that aren't traditionally rock.
Correct.
So if you go by that, then.
And I think the reason why that is because the definition of rock has grown and changed. Just because I think that rock is, it's traditionally this and that, doesn't mean that that's what rock actually is.
Yeah.
That's just what I and a lot of rock and roll fans
Right. That's
say.
it's generally agreed upon. It's generally assumed before you even have the conversation, and that's why I have a problem with it. People need to narrow down what exactly they're talking about.
And I think the reason why bands like Imagine Dragons end up on this list,
and Coldplay is on there too,
being considered rock and roll, is because they do have music that is upbeat, like I just explained. They do have music that is electric, except it's electronic.
It exudes a similar energy.
There is a similar energy, and there was something that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a statement that they made recently that kind of registered with me a little bit. Okay. Because again, I've already defined what I think rock and roll is and what I don't consider rock and roll. But Eminem is one of the inductees this year into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
cool.
I don't know if any of our listeners know or care,
yeah.
but Eminem is a top 5 for me. So I love Kiss. They're my number one, always will be.
But you're a big Eminem fan.
Eminem and his music has resonated with me on a level that Kisses has as well, even though I don't, show it in a way.
Yeah.
So obviously it was exciting to know that he's going to be inducted, but then you go through this thing of, well, he is hip-hop, he is rap.
Yeah.
And his music is not, guitar based,
drums and vocals. Apart from a few samples.
He has, sampled several
rock
artists and has had several rock, tracks. There's one I'm trying to think of off the top of my head. I can't. Survival of the Fittest. I don't know if that's the name of the song, Survival. But that song has a drum and guitar, a very rock heavy sound, even though he is a hip hop artist and is writing and singing raps. So I go through this thing where it's like, well, I'm a huge Eminem fan. I love his music, but I'm also a huge rock and roll fan, and I tend to be very protective of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and what goes in. So what do I do with this? And I initially thought, well, number one, I don't care what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame does, whether they put in a rock band or not. I don't care.
Right.
But with this in particular, I was like, well, I still don't agree with that because Eminem is not traditionally rock and roll.
Right.
And the Rock and Roll Hall released a statement saying, well, see, here's the thing. The reason why people like Eminem go in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is because their music hits the same as rock and roll.
It's the same nerve. It connects the same.
I don't know what the actual quote was.
You can make that argument for anything.
But he said Eminem's music carries the same energy as rock and roll. And when he said that, the CEO or whoever it was that said that, I kind of agreed with that in the sense that I'm someone that does listen to a lot of different kinds of music. And I do agree with the fact that, let's say, a guitar solo in rock and roll hits the same way that, a good blast beat or some double bass drumming in metal music, which hits the same as a rapper just straight killing it on the mic, which hits the same as the best EDM drop you've ever heard. Right. It's music. It's supposed to move us and grab us in a certain way. And yes, some of us will be moved and grabbed by different music, by different sounds, different genres.
Right.
But being someone who does listen to a lot of different music, I do get that same, we'll call it satisfaction, from, from hearing, like, let's say, like, double bass drumming versus Paul Stanley's vocals versus a badass EDM synth versus whatever. It's all those things that musically, scratch that itch.
Exactly.
And so I think what they're kind of saying is that Eminem and even, say, Imagine Dragons, even though they don't come from the same generation necessarily as far as like that decade, that exact same style, perhaps it exudes that same energy and captures that same essence. I can see that. I can see
there's
that.
An argument there.
I can see, but Gene, again, we're kind of basing this on what Gene is saying.
Yes.
And I think Gene is saying bands like the Foo Fighters, bands like Godsmack, Disturbed, Shinedown, 3 Days Grace, the bands that maybe came to prominence in the 90s and the 2000s, who actually, Breaking Benjamin, who actually sold gold albums, platinum albums, sold out, world tours and shows. Those bands are no more.
Yeah.
That's what Gene is saying.
Unless you're including Imagine Dragons and Coldplay.
Unless which for this argument we are not.
Right.
If that's okay.
Well, for us, I don't.
Because I don't care what people like or dislike.
Yeah.
I don't care what people consider rock and roll. That's kind of why I'm asking those people watching, listening, to put them in the comments, because I want to hear that.
Yes.
I want to hear different opinions, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume that, hey, let's keep rock and roll. Let's narrow it down and look at just these guitar-based rock bands. We know that electronic music, like Imagine Dragons, regardless whether they call themselves rock or whatever, they are popular. But let's look at some of that more traditional rock and roll. And I agree, it is dead in the definition that Gene's using. Gene's definition, I agree, rock is dead.
Well, the best rock we have is 30, 40, 50 years old.
Yeah.
And that, the fact that we got the Beatles and Queen and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and CCR and the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac still on the billboards says a lot.
Yes, that does.
Because we don't have enough current rock that either we don't, because I think people say as well, that rock's still there, you're just not looking for it. And then they'll list off, well, rock isn't dead because you haven't heard these 3 bands, and then of course it's 3 bands you've never even heard of because they're not, it's not that good or something.
It's either not that good, or it's not that popular yet, or there's so many different platforms to listen to music. You might be on the wrong one, or a different one, or another one.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it goes without saying that regardless of what genre you're talking about, everything is oversaturated.
Sure.
Because anybody can record, mix, master, produce, and upload, or not, just record anything and put anything out there at any time on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to lie, people. I have produced an EDM song in 4 hours. It's not that hard.
I could do the same with real instruments if I had computer skills, which I don't have.
Now, I'm gonna say this could end up being a series because there's so many different avenues to take this. Because I kind of want to look at, I don't know what we would call it, but when I think about rock being dead or dying, I wonder if it was something that was deliberate or if it was something that was natural. And I think you can argue both, but I kind of want to, just for right now, look at the natural state of rock's death, because I think back to a time before rock and roll when jazz was the major form of music.
That was the alternative music at the time. That was the devil's music at the time.
Well, I was going to say, jazz back in the day, that was the fast, upbeat, the skilled, and it's interesting because when we look at rock and roll, we think of our lead singers, Paul Stanley, Rob Halford, Robert Plant, Dio. We think about our guitar players, Jimmy Page, Ace Frehley, all these guys. But in jazz, it was the drummer. Mm-hmm. The drummer was the main focus of the band. There was not just 4 or 5 guys. It was like 13. It was like a big band. Our great-grandfather was in the 1940s, had his own band, big band, and he was the drummer of that band, meaning it was his band. Yeah. And so back then, it was obviously different than today, but as time went on, all of a sudden kids started listening to, you had rock and roll like Elvis and Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly and the 50s. But then once rock and roll became increasingly electric, with you have Queen and Jimi Hendrix, and of course Sabbath was when it Sabbath, I think, in Zeppelin is when it was starting to
it exploded after that.
Rock and metal was it
was on its way.
It was it. Led Zeppelin but it was energetic. It was fast. All of a sudden, the shift went from the drummer to the guitar player to it was no longer drum heroes. It was like the central figure was the lead vocalist. It was the guitar player. Yeah. Song structures completely changed. You had guitar solos and choruses, and everything changed. And obviously, in the 80s, it became kind of poppy, if you will, where everybody looked the same, sound the same. Yeah, very much. And that's kind of what caused grunge to happen. We need a new, clean, fresh slate.
Which everything sounded the same. Well, not really, but
the same thing happened.
The same thing happened in the 90s, what it did to the 80s, where everyone got on board.
Exactly,
and it became moot at that point.
And then something else. So that's kind of the point where there's always going to be something else.
Sure.
And when you get to when we were in middle school and high school, I'm talking about like mid 2000s, late 2000s, 2010s. Yeah. Rock was certainly on its way out, but what else was on its way in? And at that time, dubstep, or at least the American version of dubstep, was huge.
Yeah, electronic,
And when I think about why that is, it's exactly the same reason why rock and roll was huge. Because there's a certain youthful attitude to rock and roll. that was no longer there 40 years later because everybody's 40 years older.
Exactly.
So obviously, when the youth are going to be into something totally different, and there's a youthful attitude with EDM, but it's because it carries that same energy.
Yes, it's loud, it's intense.
It's loud,
it's still
it's
got
intense.
hooks. It's still got catchy
Yes.
things that your mind can grab
And
onto.
the exciting thing about rock and roll was the electric guitar.
Yeah.
It was new, it was loud, it was intense, it was aggressive, it was electric. Yeah. It's technology.
Yeah.
You can push a pedal, you can turn dials, and you can make this otherwise boring instrument.
Yeah, completely.
It's all of a sudden, you can make it come to life.
Exactly. It's like what Jack White currently does.
And now with dubstep, you have rock and roll, which has been the kind of the samey for the last 40 years, but now you have this new, intense, electric, electronic. Genre, it's technology. Yeah. I think technology plays a big part in obviously what we like and what we dislike, and that's gonna and that becomes more and more as time goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about rap and hip hop, it's the same way. You don't need instruments to produce that music, but it still is music.
Yeah.
It's going to be different. And so rock and roll, I think, not that I'm glad or I'm happy about it, because I love rock and roll, but it's naturally, just like everything else, it's naturally going to run its course.
Yes.
And I think where we're at with rock and roll, I think we're at a reset right now. Mm-hmm. Because it used to be,
I kind of hope so.
Before the internet, before media and entertainment is what it is today. I mean, rock bands used to have to, play in their area and get a big name in their area, and only then would they get to play their capital city, and only then would they get their
by word of mouth
record deal,
yeah,
and then they would tour their country and become big enough to tour the world.
Exactly.
There's a stepping stone there that obviously nowadays a band here in Indiana can be listened to all the way in Australia.
Yes.
We're actually going to get into something at the end of the episode where I'm talking about international, anyway.
Sure.
So it's easier nowadays. But with rock and roll,
it's easier.
It's quote unquote easier. It's more accessible. We'll use that word. It's more accessible.
Well,
but
at the same time, not.
No, because oversaturation.
Because of the oversaturation.
Because oversaturation, absolutely.
If you can do it, that means everyone else is already doing it.
Yes.
Therefore, you can get it out there, but who's going to pay attention to it because there's all those other names on the list.
Absolutely.
Which is helpful, but also the problem.
And as far as the future of rock and roll goes, I think it's going to be very, very similar to how it used to be. You're not going to be able to just post your new song and have your new album on streaming and hope to become the next rock band. I think if you're going to want to become the next rock band, you're going to have to win over everybody in your town. You're going to have to start playing local venues. Mm-hmm. You might not even be able to get a label at this point. And if you do, you're going to win them over too. But I would almost just become independent,
Oh, that would be the way
I see rock bands as becoming, less corporate, more independent.
Yeah.
You're going to have to really win over your town, win over your friends, win over your state. You're going to have to build, just like in the old days.
Right.
And I think,
the thing is, I think
that's going to be a
part
of the future.
Doing or trying to do this sort of thing. And, it kind of reminds me, about a month and a half ago, I saw Jack White live in Detroit, Michigan. And they had two opening bands. And the first band they opened with, you could tell they were a really young band, like younger than me, like maybe like 18, 19 years old, and they kicked ass. They were awesome. And they sounded kind of like classic. It was like really upbeat. It was kind of like sort of Cream inspired, but like taking that, like Cream and Hendrix, but like amping it up. It was a really cool rock band. I was like, you know what? That's something that, that I feel like kind of like Greta Van Fleet tapped into. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are trying to do. But the problem is people hate that people have an old sound because it's already been done, but no one's willing to listen to anything new as far as rock goes.
Yeah.
They're not willing to accept. It's like when people talk about Greta Van Fleet, you get one of two things. I like them personally. I like Greta Van Fleet.
I do too.
Not because they sound like music sounded like a long time ago, it's because they make good rock tunes.
Because
I like
it sounds organic.
They sound great.
I cannot think the last time I heard an actual drum. Not a pre-processed drum machine.
And the vocals.
An actual snare drum.
Every member of Greta Van Fleet is just equally as unbelievably talented as the
They're all talented. And they're our age, too.
They're younger than us.
Yeah.
They're younger than us.
Maybe, younger than us, yeah.
And people are saying, oh, I love it because, it reminds me of a long time ago. Or I hate it because they're just copying everything Zeppelin did. And, it sounds like, I don't like that it sounds like Zeppelin. And it's like, well, they try, bands are trying to do something new. They've been trying to do this, but you just don't like that either.
Right.
And it's a problem when rock is one thing to one person, like Led Zeppelin, then there's nowhere to go. And so I find people don't even examine their own thought process when they think of what they actually want from rock. It sounds like they just want Led Zeppelin. They only want to listen to the stuff that's already been there.
Well, that's it's the Kiss complex, where Kiss puts out Sonic Boom and Monster. They do new music, Samurai Son. They do new stuff, and they okay, we'll do Sonic Boom. We'll do what you think. We'll do what Kiss was in the 70s. You like that? You want that? We'll do that. Oh, okay, you didn't like that. You
thought the bitch about it.
Yeah, okay. Well, how about we do just a bare bones basic Kiss rock album where we just do Kiss. We'll do Monster. And you don't like that too either? It sounds too rugged. You want it cleaned up. You want Sonic Boom. They wanted.
But think about Psycho
when
Circus.
Sonic Boom came out, they wanted Monster. When Monster came out, they wanted Sonic Boom. They said, we're done with that. We're not going to do any of that. We're going to go to Japan and do something totally different.
But when they put out Psycho Circus, they wanted Monster. Think about Psycho Circus.
Yes.
That wasn't terribly well received because that did not sound anything like classic 70s Kiss.
No.
They got the original four back together.
And didn't have all four members of Kiss.
You have
two albums in a row that have all four members of Kiss, and people say it's it's not
they even
Kiss.
Played live, or Eric I think played they played analog.
Yes,
Eric played the drums live on the record.
I do see where Gene is coming from, where he says that fans killed it in the sense that everybody is a critic. And there is the whole, downloading thing, which that whole brings up a whole other topic. We'll have to get to that.
Yeah, that's a whole other
We'll
thing.
get to that in the next part too, I guess. But
I don't know if I'm not even sure if that really factors in, because why should that change the popularity of the music? Because there's all those other rap and hip hop artists who get their music streamed and they're huge and they're making money.
That's because they know how to make money. Rock stars don't know how to make money.
That's true. They're notorious for being terrible at it.
Hip-hop artists and rap artists
it's also just more
probably don't get their money from music. They get their money from the brand deals they get along with their music.
Yeah.
All the commercials they appear in, all the products they endorse.
But rock stars used to do the same thing.
Used to.
Yeah, that's true.
Rock, I think rock equally killed rock just as much as fans killed rock.
I don't think rock killed rock. I just think it died.
Yeah, no.
I think what you're saying about how it ran its natural course is absolutely accurate.
It ran its natural course.
I don't view it in a cynical way that Gene views it, and that. By the way, no one should care about his opinion more than he should care about my opinion, because his opinion on whether rock is dead or not holds no more weight than anyone else's. That's what we need to realize.
I think Gene's view is severely limited because he looks at the fans killed it. The fans killed it. I would, in return, ask Gene, what are you doing to help rock?
He's not doing
What
anything.
are you doing to help rock?
No.
And barring a few things, maybe, it's not much.
No.
Gene, I know, did appear before the Congress to, on behalf of newer artists, talk about the current state of the music industry, pleading for new laws to come into effect that would help sort of bring some of that money back to the artists. Yeah. I don't know if it fell on deaf ears or not, because you know how slow Washington is. Don't even worry about that. But Gene,
That's not exactly
I don't know that Gene and Kiss as a whole is doing much to save or help rock. They quit making music a decade ago.
I was going to say, that's it.
They don't bring newer bands on tour.
Right.
I do.
That's
in
true.
2010, there was the Envy. In 2014, 2016, there was Dead Daisies.
Yeah, they rocked.
But who's opening for Kiss on the end of the road tour? Is it a rock band or is it a painter? Not a rock band. Now, they are celebrating rock through his paintings. They are playing rock music.
Yeah.
But there are no. But what is Kiss doing? They call these newer bands popcorn fart bands who aren't worth value of the buck.
Yeah.
But what are they doing to bring these bands and help bands up?
I was going to say...
Gene's the first person to shut down David Lee Roth and say, well, he's not worth going to because he's a shell of what he used to be.
When the same argument, and I'm not making the argument, but the same argument could be made about Paul.
And
I'm not making that argument.
And that's 100% true. But nobody should be making that argument because Gene, that is not... even if you're not friends, that is your peer. Yeah. Rock is dead because you're killing it.
Because you're
not... When he made that statement to David Lee Roth publicly in the media, I said, Gene, you are helping kill rock.
Yeah.
You are tearing down a member of your community
Yeah.
that you claim to hold so near and dear to your heart, but you have no problem flying off at the mouth and tearing down somebody.
That was a problem.
That was a problem.
And he did
because
apologize for it, kind of.
Well, good. Because somebody, yes, could say the same thing about Paul.
Good.
Somebody, I know people are saying the same thing about Gene.
You could say it about Gene because he ain't moving around like he used to.
No, he's
not.
not.
I wouldn't say that about Gene or David Lee Roth because
I wouldn't bring it up. Great. You know why? Because they're all experiencing life naturally.
By the way, David
just
Lee
like
Roth,
rock and roll is.
We saw Roth. There's no issue there.
No issue at all.
I saw no problem when we saw Roth.
I saw we were 6th row.
We saw him up close, and the guy he always has a smile on his face.
Now I never seen Van Halen, so I can't compare him. But I was like, dude, I'm here in the moment seeing David Lee Roth. This is fantastic.
Him and his band. Awesome.
And there may have been backing tracks, but Kiss has got backing tracks. Shinedown has backing tracks. Fozzy, Chris Jericho
Every
has backing
tracks. See.
Everybody has backing tracks. Why? Because fans are always complaining. Even the ones that claim that we're not complaining. We're complaining about not complaining.
Kiss fans are going to complain about Paul using the backing track, and they're going to complain about how shitty his voice sounds.
And the fans, can be a problem when they become too. I don't know what the word is. But we become too rigid, where we make things, everything has to follow this straight and narrow. Kiss has to be this in order to be Kiss. Right. Rock and roll has to be this in order for it to be rock and roll. Well, otherwise, it's null and void.
And that's why it died.
And that's why it died.
By the way, I'm just saying died in the sense that it's not.
We're using it in a general term. Yes.
I'm like when I say rock, rock died. Well, rock has been around a hell of a lot longer than hip hop and rap has. So you think about all that time they've had to go through it all. Hip hop and rap's only been really big since the late 80s or something. 80s, think about...
it became very, very, very...
In the 80s,
hip hop, it's been around since the 70s, but it did become...
I'm talking about, I guess...
The 80s with NWA.
NWA and stuff like that, they just... Yeah.
Run DMC.
Into the 90s, late 80s, 90s with the gangster rap stuff, that,
Absolutely.
It's a heck of a lot younger than rock is. So we could... Who knows what's going to happen to hip hop and rap in 20, 30 years.
Exactly.
We just don't know. But with rock, we've been through the 60s. That had a sound. We went through the 70s. That had a bit of a different sound. 80s,
they had a
same
sound.
thing. The 90s.
And then now it's free for all.
And then I was going to say now I think we've ran out of ideas, and that's not completely true because there's a lot of interesting artists blending a lot of different genres, doing a lot of cool rock stuff like Jack White, who I adore, and he's he's my rock star of the modern era. But if you listen to his past 2 albums, he's doing a lot of electronic hip hop.
By the way, it's amazing.
Hip hop inspires. If you haven't heard Jack White's latest album, Fear of the Dawn, and the one before that I didn't care for as much, but a lot of he's taking rock, he's keeping that energy, and he's adding a sort of electronic, almost to hip hop with some weird abstract stuff. I'm like, to me, he is the one who's doing what you'd think everyone would be doing, taking rock and doing something different. And he is fairly successful, but I just, where can rock go?
Yeah.
I mean, what are there any current rock artists, and by current I just mean came out in the last 10 years that you like? Because I can think of a couple albums maybe from bands that I'm not like diehard into.
Yeah.
Like a band called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Say it again?
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
King Gizzard? Okay, I've never heard of that.
They've been around for maybe about 10 years now. They're kind of a young band. They put out albums relentlessly. They're putting multiple albums out a year. They have a huge catalog for such a young band. And there's one of their albums that I absolutely love. It's called Murder of the Universe. It's really cool. It sounds like kind of like the 70s.
Yeah.
But a band like that, I'm like, okay, well, we have that, but it's, for me now it's like, okay, I can pick and choose from this rock-ish album to this rock-ish album, but rock as a whole genre, it's not like Kiss and Led Zeppelin, where obviously I still listen to them both, but they're very much in the same genre. But do you have any that's what
that's where I want to end this episode. It's something positive.
I was saying, if we end the episode, we should try and recommend some sort of new rock thing.
I had the exact same idea.
Yeah.
So I totally agree 100%. So I guarantee we'll do a part 2 maybe at some point, because I have ideas on this already that we didn't even get to today. Again, it's a very, very broad topic to talk about, and we're going to need your help doing so. But so I hold on real quickly.
Go for it. Oh, Miley Cyrus is on that list, by the way, of current rock artists. But she's great.
Plastic Hearts is a rock album. It's great.
Oh, I forgot she did.
It's fire.
Yeah. Nirvana, Journey, Guns N' Roses, Metallica.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, as far as new music goes, I do want to share something because this actually is a rock album that just came out in 2022. This is brand spanking new. Wow. This is actually an album by one of our listeners, Glenn Walker. His band W.A.L.K.E.R just released their EP, Spreading the Disease, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Now,
really?
It's got 6 tracks on it. I'm listening to it in my car. Perfect for summer listening. Windows down. Straight out of the 80s. Great guitar. This is a rock album. If you want to support new rock music, if you want to hear new rock music, then this is what you need to go get. I will leave a link in the description for you because I think I only paid maybe $6 to $10 for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's nothing. And
no, for new music.
And I'm
absolutely.
saying, and if you're a Kiss fan and you can pay all this, money for this,
Put some money into it.
You can pay money into new music.
Yes.
And so I am happy to support not only just, one of our listeners for the podcast, but also a up-and-coming rock musician. So, Glenn, thank you for the album. And for anybody who's out there watching, check them out. I'm serious, Walker. Check them out on YouTube. Like I said, I'll leave a link in the description. And then we mentioned this on the podcast before, Ancient Door.
Oh, yeah, I love
I love tribute to the Elder. I think this was Jeb's Kiss Spotlight a
few weeks ago.
A few episodes ago. And this was a top to bottom tribute / cover to the Elder that was only done by maybe one or two guys. It was produced by one guy, and absolutely fantastic.
Completely amazing, that album is.
The instrumentation is great, and then this is something a little on the heavier side, but somebody from right here in town in southern Indiana released their album from their band Hollowmaker. This EP is called No Silence, No Solace. Now, this is not rock and roll in the sense of Kiss. Yeah. And it's more
aggressive.
It's more aggressive. You could call it metalcore, deathcore, whatever, but it's still drums, guitar, bass, and vocals. And this was completely, written in-house. It was self-produced and released, and that is super cool.
Absolutely.
I have copy number 6. I have a handwritten note. I mean, it's cool. And I actually, and this, by the way, this isn't just it's good music. This is good music.
Yeah.
The music that we have right here in front of me right now is good music. It's not good just because I'm here on the podcast, saying it's good. I'm saying because I've listened to it, I've bought it, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
There's another band that I've been listening to recently that my wife and I just discovered called The Warning. Which I had never heard of them before, but apparently it's a trio of sisters who they've been uploading to YouTube for several years, and that's maybe where I think they gained their popularity.
Okay.
But they are releasing amazing quality rock and roll.
Cool.
And to the point where there are very few bands that you can listen to, and how do I say this? Not everybody likes every song by their favorite band. Not every Kiss fan likes every single. I do, but not.
I almost do.
Not every single Kiss fan likes every single Kiss song.
Yeah.
Not every Metallica fan likes every Metallica song or Metallica album.
I love Saint Anger.
And sometimes you have bands where it's it's 50-50. It's either going to be a really good song or a really crap song. Hollywood Undead.
I don't think our listeners listen to all of them. Nor do I think they should.
For sure.
Unless you like it, go for it.
But so a band like The Warning, you don't have to worry about whether the song is going to be good or not. And that's kind of what I like. You know what I mean?
Because they're all good, or just
they're all good. They're all just that good. No. And I heard it and almost didn't believe it because I was like, this is coming out now in 2022? Yeah. And to me, it's the perfect blend of how do we take rock and roll that worked in the 70s, those simple driving guitar riffs, those hooks and those vocals, how do we take that and bring it to the modern day where we do have a lot of, vocal filters and people really aren't interested in, crazy lyrical music anymore. Like Metallica's music is like an essay. Everybody wants ooh 14 times. So how do you make rock music for an audience that maybe has the attention span of a squirrel?
Yeah.
You do what The Warning is doing.
Yeah, I'm gonna check them out.
Check them out. And I told my wife, I said, I've got to get an album. I've got to get my hands, whether I have to go online and get it or I can get it in store a record store, a music store, somewhere. I've got to get it. Yeah. Because it kind of brings me back to 3 Days Grace. Remember when 3 Days Grace was hitting it real big?
Absolutely. We used to hear them on the radio every day.
And every song was a banger no matter what. Right?
It's true.
It was like
all their hits were good.
Yeah, it was like Riot. And What I've Become.
Breaking Benjamin was
Breaking Benjamin. It was like there used to be Godsmack. Seether, Disturbed. It's
Butt rock.
It's like
sorry.
It's like play a song. I don't care. It's gonna be good. Like there are few band AC/DC. I mean, obviously every song sounds kind of the same.
Yeah.
But you know what you're gonna get, and you can look forward to it, and it's consistent, and it works, and it's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
Luckily, the Warning is out there giving us that. So
cool.
if you're in need, and I heard about that group from a Kiss Facebook group.
Did?
From a Kiss Facebook group is where I heard about the Warning. So I mean. Obviously, yes, there are bands like Greta Van Fleet. I will never forget when one of our friends showed us Greta Van Fleet for the first time. And I was like, there's a kid that's our age that can make that sound with his mouth. There are people that are our age that are actually putting together, again, drum, bass, guitar, vocal, organic rock music and doing it well. I was blown away. Their first EP, I think we got their first full-length album, and then they just released another one, I think, last year.
Yeah.
And I know my wife is a huge fan. She saw him live in Nashville last year. We're going to see him live again this year. Because you know why? I want to see a good rock show. I want to hear good rock music, and they're playing it.
I was going to say what you want about Greta Van Fleet, but look up any of their live stuff on YouTube. They are freaking awesome.
Greta Van Fleet, I think, has gotten a bad rap because some of their first wave of music sounded a little too close to Zeppelin, and those who were really and the elitist gatekeepers of rock and roll trying to dictate what's good. And I actually thought that they sounded like Led Zeppelin and Rush.
Yeah, vocally.
And now I hear their music and I'm like, oh, they just sound like Greta Van Fleet.
Exactly.
Because
especially their most recent album does not sound like Led Zeppelin.
And I'm not them, and I don't know them. So maybe they were trying to go for a Zeppelin sound to get everybody's attention on the first album. Maybe maybe it was a coincidence. Either way, their sound now has kind of become just their own sound.
It is their own sound.
Because they're not, because Led Zeppelin, I mean, they were a jam band, but they were also like, they had a lot of heavy tunes. And Greta Van Fleet is not a heavy band.
No,
they are light, they're a jam band. It's super good. They've really come into their own, and so I understand where people are just, you hear it once and you think you just know it already, and you just have made all your decisions and then all your expectations, and then you just kind of move on.
Yeah.
I always encourage people to revisit songs, revisit albums, revisit music. Talked about Sonic Boom, one of the most polarizing Kiss albums, especially in the last 20 years.
One of the only last Kiss albums in the last 20 years.
I'm sorry, one of the more polarizing.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, things in history. Yeah, but I mean, obviously, if we want to see rock continue, we have to give it a chance. We have to expand on what we think is rock, and if we want to see the genre move forward, we need to be willing to at least support those artists. Because again, and Kiss will tell you, bands like Kiss, they don't need our money. Yeah, I know I've given a lot of it to them.
Yeah, we still
do.
But
they don't need it. It's bands. It's people like people like Walker. It's the guys in Hollowmaker.
Yeah, check out. I mean, because we don't really have a local scene here where we're at. Not really. Or where I'm at, there's no local scene.
But that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, where rock it's going to reset.
Yeah.
Because with music nowadays, you have artists like Olivia Rodrigo who can release one song and become an international sensation and have more success overnight than it took Kiss to get in 2 or 3 years.
Exactly.
That's because of the way it is with this industry and with entertainment, with media, with technology. Rock bands are not at the advantage. And so I can totally see rock scenes starting to happen again, where you're going to have people who want to play rock music, who are going to get out in their local scene, their local venues, and start playing and attracting people to those venues who aren't necessarily either worried or capable of posting to the person across the world, racking up 1 million views on YouTube. Let's face it, 1 million views doesn't pay.
Not anymore.
1 million views doesn't pay. Get out in front of the people and play your music.
Yeah.
So I can totally see where you're going to have, places like where in New York you had the New York scene with the Dolls, and Kiss.
There were scenes.
You had the scene in LA Strip. You had music here that was not anywhere else.
Exactly.
That's going to come back, I think. I hope in rock,
that would be cool.
Where people are going to start building their communities. Where you're going to have like this rock band here, and this rock band here from across town get together, and they're going to kind of build up their town, whatever, maybe they're doing tribute stuff and half originals and posting here and there, but then once they get bigger and bigger, then they'll reach more people. Because with hip hop and pop and everything, it reaches everybody instantly.
True.
And it's easy. I use that term loosely. It's easy, more accessible in that way. Rock fans and rock bands are not at the advantage.
And that's kind of the reason why, again, we could talk forever about this, but a lot of, even the more rock stuff that we have, it's, typically one person making all the music himself. I noticed that's a trend, is that there's a lack of group effort. It's typically one person. Like, what I'm trying to do now is just me. I've been not successfully at it because I'm bad at recording, but I'm starting to write my own stuff. But there's no one, everyone's so isolated, and I'm not just talking about COVID, but people are, communities are so disbanded, and,
everybody stays at home.
I'll say it's a lot of the, popular acts that lean towards rock is typically one person recording, like Tame Impala. It's just one guy. He's not like rock, but it's just one guy, and because there's a lack of bands, groups.
Well, now that's something interesting too, and of course I don't want to drag us on too long because we already said we were at the end, but I think maybe people have learned that bands don't work, because bands like KISS,
well, they certainly don't.
Because bands, they just don't work. When you have 4 or 5 people living in the same, you're doing the same thing every day. You're traveling. You're eating gas station food. You're sleeping on rock or whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to take it out on each other.
Yeah.
And then, so bands like KISS, who have had struggles with members and personality differences, creative differences, musical differences, Metallica.
Yeah.
I know Godsmack has had different issues, and all bands will, because it involves people. As long as people are involved, you're always going to have issues. And what we've noticed is that with music nowadays, we've removed people.
Yeah.
There are no bands.
It's just one guy.
One person. It's Billie Eilish. It's the person. That's all it is. It's Bieber. Whoever it is.
True.
It's just the one person. And also, why would you want to be in a band when if we got 4 people in a band, the money we make, which if we're a rock band is less than nothing, the nothing that we're making gets split between the 4 of us.
Yeah. I'd
rather get rid of you and go out on my own and make my own money. You know what I mean?
I don't know if anyone's a fan of Frank Zappa here, but he pretty much, he
One-man band.
He died in 1993. By that point, he did still do live stuff with an orchestra. That was the last thing he ever did, was an actual orchestra, a big band orchestra thing he composed. But by the end of his days, he worked in his basement on a computer.
I believe it.
Because that technology was just starting to, and he said this is the way I've always wanted to make music. He said I didn't want
to rely on other people.
He hated the human. He was doing an interview, and someone said, "Well, isn't some of the magic going to be lost when you remove the human element?" And he said, I've been actively trying to remove the human element from my music." But he said the only reason why he bothers to have musicians is so he can play live.
Right.
And he was just a fascinating person, but he really, if you go watch footage on YouTube, you can find him in the early 90s, right before he died. He had cancer. Sitting in his basement, he had a keyboard where he programmed all these sounds, and that was the way he wanted to work. He didn't want to deal with anyone. He didn't want to pay anyone else. He wanted to create all his music electronically.
It makes a lot of sense.
His last couple of projects, he just did totally electronic compositions.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. How many times do you think Gene and Paul wish they could have gotten rid of Peter and Ace so that they could have done things themselves?
That's why they had studio musicians fill in.
Well, exactly, because you have to deal with people's limitations, their weaknesses, their shortcomings, their personality, and I'm sure Peter and Ace were like, I don't want to work with Gene and Paul. Their personality and their there's a lot of conflict with bands, and so I've noticed that perhaps another issue with rock and roll is the fact that to be in a rock and roll band, the way we've defined it, drums, guitar, bass, and vocal, you need to have multiple people. Whereas when you think about what works and what doesn't, what works is having one person.
Yeah.
Why not be like Eminem and write your own lyrics and produce your own beats, or maybe have one person Dre do it, and it's just you and your best friend.
I was gonna say,
and you do your own stuff.
I feel like it's more difficult for rock, and this kind of sums up everything that we were just saying. But it's more difficult with rock. I think I almost lost my train of thought there. Because it only really works, really works on this level.
Yeah.
And the level of Metallica and the level of the Beatles, where all 4 members bring something.
You have to be on your game, and that's why I'm so impressed with the current KISS, because this is the longest because Gene and Paul for years struggled to find people who were on their level.
The 80s.
Now, Eric Carr.
Not musically. We're just talking professionally.
Professionally and intelligently, and Eric Carr was there. Yeah. It's just that Paul, with the way the band was, didn't give him the room to do that.
Sure.
Bruce, the most competent person, most professional person. That lineup, they had it.
Could easily be there
with Eric Singer and Bruce Kulick, they had it.
Yep.
With Eric and Tommy, they had it. There has never been a time where you hear in the press, more drama with Kiss. Is Kiss going to continue as a band?
Yeah, they're breaking up. They're throwing shit at each other.
Yeah, this Kiss.
They're too old for that. Anyway.
Never done that.
Yeah, no, not that we
because the four of them know exactly what to do. They know their place. They know what needs to be done, and how to do it, and they can operate on a level that works. And they give the fans the best product they can.
But the reason why it works,
other bands have fallen apart.
Well, the reason why it works is because Gene and Paul are in charge.
Yes.
And you need someone, or in this case, two people, to grab the reins and make it work.
Or in Godsmack's case,
four people's too many. You can't have four people in charge. As much as people want to say all four members were equal in Kiss, they never ever were.
No,
they never ever.
It was Gene and Paul.
That's a lie. I mean,
it's a lie.
They tried to convince themselves that each member was as important as the next, but they weren't.
It's like saying money back guaranteed. We're saying that just to kind of pat on the back, and Kiss was always.
I believe that they believed that in the 70s.
Oh, sure.
But by the late 70s, by 79, they knew full and well that was not the case.
Well, I don't even think Ace would help bring in equipment in the early 70s. I mean, I know that he designed the logo, but I mean, who was the one doing press kits in Gene and Paul? Who was the one marketing, Gene and Paul? I mean, yes, all four of them were necessary and needed, but
yes, that's true.
And
as
just
far
like
as the music goes,
just like Godsmack goes, you have Sully, who I mean, obviously you need Robbie, you need Shannon, you need Roman,
but it's his band.
Tony. But Sully is the lead guy, he's the lead songwriter, and he's the boss. Wow, awesome, great. That was a fantastic episode.
We
probably again could keep going, and I definitely think we're going to continue this topic of is rock dead in the future, because we definitely covered a lot, but yet there's some things that we just didn't quite get to and didn't quite flesh out all the way, and so we're going to need your guys' help. Please leave your comments and comments in the comment section on what you think about the whole is rock dead conversation. I mean, how do you interpret that? And do you think that rock is dead? And whether you do or don't, I mean, where do you think rock is going to go in the next 5 years, 10 years? You've heard our thoughts. We need yours. Yeah. I actually, real quickly before we close, I want to open some Kiss stuff. Is that cool?
Let's do it. Let's end on another positive note.
Yeah.
More Kiss stuff, the better. I mean, come on.
Yep.
Actually, while you're opening that, I'll say that, this is Xander's room in his house. In my apartment, I don't have a room that looks like this, but lately I've been buying more Kiss stuff than I ever have. I looked on Amazon. The price of the Destroyer box set is continuing to fluctuate. I ended up getting it for like $140 on Amazon.
Woo!
So if you were hesitant about getting the box set, even at $200, I think that's more than a fair price.
Oh, yeah.
I bought mine at less, so if you keep an eye out for that, and if you still want one, I recommend getting one. And I also got a photography book from, what's her name?
Lynn Goldsmith?
Lynn Goldsmith. She did that photography book with Gene and Paul a few years ago, documenting 1977 to 1980, of course, Kiss at the height of their career. Fantastic book. That was also discounted on Amazon, brand new. Got that for like $30, and that's easily worth more than that. So check that out. But what do we have here?
Well, so we actually have Kiss Immortals, which I'm sure some fans either will remember or don't want to remember. Anyway, so Kiss did I think we talked about it briefly on one episode.
I can grab it.
But yeah, go ahead. Kiss did how do I even explain it?
I don't even know.
3D CG animated computer show in the late 90s on a streaming website. So this is all way before. This is way ahead of its time, and it completely failed and flopped. But anyway, so basically this is a choose your adventure Kiss adventure. Kiss is playing a show in Pennsylvania. Suddenly they go through a time warp, and they're transported into a world where music is outlawed, and they have to defeat, I think her name is Domino, is
I love that.
The enemy. Anyway, this was one of those scratch your head moments in history, but I think if this were to happen in today's world, this would be incredible. Because technology in the late 90s was not, or early 2000s, whatever it was not where it's at today as far as 3D and CG animation goes. So, and they actually did their own voices for this. The original lineup did their voice. I think there's some other weird guest vocals in between there, but you can actually hear Gene, Paul, Peter, and
what's
Ace.
on the CD? Is this...
This says episode 1, but basically you plug this into your computer and then it plays... And then during,
so it's like a let me see.
It's a DVD. It's for PC.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a C, you put it into a compact disc player.
No, it's like it's for PC.
That's so.
I had the DVD over there.
Gotcha.
But I saw the sealed disc and thought, well, why not waste more money on that? But it's basically you plug it in, and then when it plays at certain portions, it'll have you choose what happens next. Should Kiss do this or should Kiss do that? Should they go here? Should they go there?
This is ancient.
And guess what happens?
What?
Halfway through, it just shuts off. The story never finishes.
Oh, yeah.
Development never finished.
No, they shut
it just cuts off, and that's it. That's all she wrote. And I'm thinking,
this has got Master and Slave from Carnival of Souls on it.
Yes.
That's awesome. It's got Within from Psycho Circus.
Shout out loud.
Got the Detroit. Yeah. I was gonna say it's got the double platinum version of Strutter.
Nice.
It says Windows 95 or 98.
Windows 95.
That's old.
Woo!
That's old.
That's me right there.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Super interesting. This was something before you told me about it. I would have never have known about it if it weren't.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I've been just kind of finding out about in the last 5 years. As soon as you think you know everything about Kiss, there's always some hidden chapter.
Yeah.
And this late 90s thing they were doing with Immortals and the Kiss Nightmare Child PC game.
The Kiss Pinball.
For
the PlayStation and the PC.
Was a very, very...
very interesting time.
It was a novel era, but for some it's loathed, for some it's loved, and
I think about all the merchandise they had, all the Psycho Circus merch.
But the reason why I like it is because it's my generation.
It is cool.
Because it actually does suck.
Of course, yeah. I mean, most things from that era, computer CGI.
The other thing I got was the Kiss Monster Fanzine edition. Now, I already have this. This was the first edition of Monster we ever got.
Yes.
But because of that, it's also the most used. And the one I have is used, and it's...
Because it's a booklet. It's a...
60-page booklet, yeah. It's the 60-page booklet fanzine, or 64-page, CD exclusive limited deluxe edition of Monster. I bought a new one because the one I have is 10 years old, and it's used, and it's worn. The CD just falls out of the flap. It's one of the problems with not having a jewel case.
Right.
But...
Now, how many copies of Monster does this make? 12 or 13, 14?
I mean, if I have to do a rough count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The one fanzine is 6. This, I guess, would be 7. The picture disc is 8.
Yeah,
the record is 9. I have a homemade cassette. That's 10. I have it on MP3. It's 11. At this point, we're just making stuff up.
WAV file,
yeah, exactly.
MP4.
So, one thing I did get recently that I did not show on the pod was this Hell or Hallelujah single, this radio single from 2012, which I thought was super cool. We're actually coming up on the 10th anniversary of the release of the single.
Wow, that was... I remember...
which is weird to think about. But yeah, so 10 years ago, Hell or Hallelujah was released, and it was awesome.
Now, even though that's 10 years old, we were talking about this before we started filming, but I didn't know... Even 10 years ago, I didn't know there were CD singles still being released.
No, that's kind of why I bought it, because I was like, what?
I had no... I mean...
They're still doing... I figured you'd think it'd be a digital, here's a flash drive, or, whatever. But no, this is a CD...
Just a download file, yeah.
That says it has the radio edit and the original version of Hell or Hallelujah.
It's from Universal Music, so it's legit. But
I'm not sure what... Somebody have to look, because I'm not the smartest person, so you have to let me know in the comments. I'm not sure what impact date means, but it says impact date July 24th.
Is that when it's released?
Well, Kiss played this song live for the first time. I think it was the 4th of July at the H&B Forum in England, in London. And that was July 4th, so why 24th? I don't know. Maybe there's something to do with the impact date. I think the impact date means something. It's
a promo thing.
I'm not smart enough.
It's a record label thing. I don't know.
I love talking Kiss.
I love talking Kiss, and let us know about Rock is Dead. Let us know if we were dead wrong. What did we miss? What did we get right, if anything? Feel free to leave all of your Rock is Dead hot takes in the comments below.
Yeah, and on a future episode, we will look at them and read them, and we'll discuss them.
We should.
Because when this episode goes up, we'll be filming the next one, so we won't actually have the full reception yet of this episode, so it may take about a month, but let's revisit this.
Yes, and we also have the new Off the Soundboard coming up very soon.
That's like, yeah.
Maybe I'll just rejoice and thank.
I can't wait to just go into a store, buy the new Kiss Live Off the Soundboard, and jam out to it on the way home.
And already know it's going to sound better than that crap they gave us last time.
I can't believe Virginia Beach.
Because they had the other single out. They did...
the first one was...
Do You Love Me?
Do You Love Me?
And then they did Shout It Out Loud.
And Shout It Out Loud.
Both sound really good. And I mean, sonically, they sound good.
Pretty good.
I don't know what happened with the last one. This one I'm looking forward to.
Yep.
The original band, and the quality sounds excellent. So I'm very much excited. And you'll be seeing a review of that somewhat soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, it'll be the next one probably. This episode will be up a couple days after that is released.
Yeah.
So we will be doing our review.
And I'll be listening to that nonstop.
I can't wait. And I'm still listening to the first one. Like the first one, the Tokyo one.
Oh, yeah.
I listen to that just as much, if not more, than I do Kiss Alive 1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
And 4. Because it's just that good. I love it.
We'll see where this ranks. Especially with the Millennium Show. Original 4, we'll see.
Yeah. So, again, thank you everybody so much for joining us on episode 26 of the Kiss Army Things podcast. Like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. We are all over social media. Actually, we're on Facebook and Instagram. We're not all over social media. That's too much. We're just on Facebook and Instagram. We're keeping it simple, stupid, right? Hey, it's the Kiss Theory. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. Episode 26 of the Kiss Army Things podcast. You're with Xander.
And Jeb.
Thank you.